Welcome. My name is Clement Pepe. I'm a success coach. What we're going to talk about today, which is don't try to make sense out of nonsense. And we'll explain a little bit more what that means in a few minutes. But first off, again, I want to welcome all of you. First of all, thank you for being here. And I'm really excited about the opportunity to share some of the things that we're going to talk about today. And also, too, I want to, hopefully you're all doing well and feeling well, etc., being safe, doing what we're supposed to do in this time, etc. But first of all, again, as I always talk about when we first start talking, I wanted to make sure that you're listening to this presentation and going to get the most out of this presentation. And again, how we do that is basically listen from not I agree or I disagree, but listen from a place called possibility, meaning what's possible out of what I'm hearing here toward what's important to me. And then go out, try it on, see if it fits, wear it for a while. Wear it for the next 30 days, we'll say, and see if it fits. If it doesn't fit, bring it back. I'll take it back. No questions asked. But if it does fit, you can keep it for the rest of your life. And I say 30 days because that's how long it takes really to create a habit. It's not just a catchy bumper sticker. It's really how we human beings create habits. We've got some what they call neural pathways in our brain that really expand. And as we're doing something, then some things become a habit if we do it for 30 days. What's a good habit for us or not? So we want to make sure that what we're doing are habits that are going to be effective for what we're up to in life. If we want to have a certain goal in line, whether it be a financial goal, spiritual goal, health and fitness goal, any type of goal, well, we want to make sure that our habits are lining up with the actions that are going to get us to that goal. So that's what we're going to do here today, is really talk about those types of action steps that we can take to create what's going on in your life to be more effective and more fun, if you will. So first off, I want to tell you a little story, because again, what we're going to be talking about is trying not to make sense out of nonsense. That's the key to all this, is coming from a place called, I don't try to make sense out of nonsense. And let me tell you a story. This was interesting to me. I was working with a client of mine back in New York, actually. We were on a coaching call, and I asked him a question about someone that he was interacting with or something. And when I asked him the question, he said, well, I don't try and make sense out of nonsense. And I'd never heard that statement before, but man alive, I couldn't wait to write it down, because I thought, whoa, that is so powerful. And why it's so powerful, and I've been teaching that principle for a lot of years now. In fact, sometimes I even have to relate back to that conversation with the client that we were talking about, who really taught it to me. And by the way, I'd love to tell you I've made up all of these things I'm going to teach you I have been talking about, but I haven't. I've been doing this work for many, many years. I've been a student of human being ever since I can remember. I've always been curious as to how do we get the best out of ourselves? So I've always been that way. And, coming up in September, I'll be 75 years old. So I've been paying attention a lot about what's effective for us and whatnot. And so when I learn something or hear something that I feel is going to be something that will help my clients or people that I talk to, I'm going to use it and teach it, and etc. So the statement today, and this is, I want you to write this down. Again, it's a good idea to take notes, because if we're taking notes, we're going to remember a lot more than if we're just listening. But what I want you to do is write that statement down. I don't try to make sense out of nonsense. All right? I don't try to make sense out of nonsense. Now, what does that mean, basically? Well, let's say that we're watching something that would have something in it that may not be, sensible to us. Let's say we're watching something like, maybe we could say the news. I'm talking about the news. Yeah. Now, when you watch the news, no matter when you do, and by the way, the news is at you almost constantly now. I mean, it comes up on your computer, it comes on TV, it comes all over the place, really. But when you start watching the news, there's a lot of stuff on there that isn't going to make sense to you. A lot of things that people may be doing or not doing that in your mind wouldn't make sense to you because you would never do it and never even entertained the possibility of doing it. So if you're sitting there trying to make sense out of what people are doing that doesn't make sense, then all of a sudden you're going to get frustrated. You're going to get upset. You're going to get sad. You're going to get all kinds of negative feelings about what you're seeing because in your mind, it doesn't make any sense. So if you're trying to stick something in your mind and try to make sense of it that doesn't make sense, it is never going to happen. The only thing that's going to happen is you're going to get frustrated. You're going to get upset. You're going to get sad. You're going to get angry. You're going to get all kinds of different emotions that are not healthy for you or for what you're up to out there in life. It's almost like if you took water and you tried to make gold out of it, we'll say. So you took water and you tried to make gold out. And let's say you didn't know you couldn't make gold out of water, but you would just wanted to because you wanted to see it would make sense. If we could make gold out of water, ooh, that would be a great system to have in my life. But you would drive yourself crazy trying to make gold out of water, even though you wanted it, even though it didn't make sense to you that you couldn't do it. It would constantly drive you crazy. Crazy meaning not feeling the best you can, not being as much as you can be, not having an attitude of excitement and enthusiasm, but more of anger and frustration, etc. Well, that's the same thing that happens when we're trying to make sense out of nonsense. And so, and again, it's coming at us all the time. We've got stuff going on now out there in the world that for the average person, that doesn't make sense. But yet, we're trying to create in our minds how it could possibly be going on or why people would do whatever people do that don't make sense to us. And it would never happen. So your best bet, all of us really, is to come from that position called, I don't try and make sense out of nonsense. Now, the first emotion that we have usually, and this is a human being, all of us, and we're going to put us all in that category. The first emotion we usually have to a negative situation is an emotional response. And a lot of times that emotional response could very well be negative, or could very well pull us down, or could very well upset us. Because we're human beings, so we're going to have that first initial reaction. But now our job is to get off of that initial reaction as soon as we can. There's a saying I heard many years ago that I think it speaks to what we're talking about now. But and what it said was that pain is inevitable, but suffering is the choice. So pain is inevitable, but suffering is the choice. So meaning that something occurs that isn't to your liking. Someone passes on, something happens that's negative to you or a family member or some situations you're seeing out in the world, whatever. To experience pain about that situation or occurrence, that happens. I mean, that's inevitable. There's going to be situations out in the world that are going to happen. We're going to experience pain out of those situations, whether those situations are directly attributed to us or what's going on with us, or if it's just the stuff that we're observing. We're going to experience pain out of that. That's what human being does. But what pain is inevitable, suffering is the choice means that we as human beings need to get off of that pain as soon as we can. Now, we're still talking about this situation that happened 6 months ago, we'll say, and we're still talking about, can you believe that guy did this to me? Or do you believe that guy? Now, that suffering that's going on 6 months later, that's your choice now, because the pain occurred, but the more that you keep bringing it up, to keep more thinking about it, more putting your attention on it, more sharing it with other people, the more you're bringing it present again. And now you're experiencing it just as if it occurred the 6 months ago. And so, but that is your choice now, because you could leave it back where you found it, if you will, 6 months ago by getting off of that subject and not bringing it up and not speaking about it. Especially, speaking about it, there's been some surveys done and research over the years. And it says that, if you have a negative thought, it's pretty powerful. It's about 4 times worth of what a positive would be. But if you speak that negative thought or any negative thought, it expands that power of that negativity 10, 12 times over, you say. And so just thinking it is one thing, but when you start speaking it and you start sharing it with others, etc., now all of a sudden you're bringing that negativity even more and more and more into your life. And so we've got to be very careful about what we're speaking. Negative, I would say. And yet, it doesn't mean we have to get involved in it from an emotional standpoint. Of course, it's going on. Of course, we have feelings about it. Of course, we won't want it to be happening to us. We don't understand it. We don't want to try and make sense of it, or we can't make sense of it. That's all going on. We're not discounting that. But yet, we have to keep us up in our thoughts, in our feelings, in our way of being, even though that stuff is going on out there, because we still got our things that we need to do. So we don't want to go down to that situation. It's almost like if you want to help the poor, for example, it's not a good idea for you to go down and get poor. You're not going to be able to help them that much. More so, you'll be able to help them a lot more if you're wealthy or you have money. And then you can maybe bring them up to your level rather than going down to the level of poor, if you will. And it's the same with the situations that are going on out there in the world. If we come down to that level in our energy, in our way of being, in our mind, then we're going to not be able to, first of all, handle what we need to handle in our lives, our goals, our dreams, our things that we want to create, our family, our friends, whatever it is that we're up to out there in life. If we're coming down and allowing ourselves to get into that sense of defeat, sense of it's a horrible world, etc., it's going to affect our lives, and it will be for us a horrible world and all the other things that we're telling ourselves. So our job is, again, as always, is to keep ourselves up, even in the face of all of those things that go on out there in the world. And again, the best way that we can do that is to tell ourselves on a constant basis, because like everything else, it takes practice to get good at whatever we want to do. But we have to keep telling ourselves, I don't try and make sense out of nonsense. And pain, for me, it's inevitable. I'm going to experience pain. But the suffering part, I'm going to choose to let go of it a lot faster. And then when you start doing that and you start creating those habits, it's like working a muscle. When you start working, let's say, your bicep, the bicep may be at first a little bit atrophied, but the more you work that muscle, the stronger it'll get, stronger it'll get, stronger it'll get. Same with the way that you work any muscle in any kind of goals or any kind of activities. That muscle is going to get stronger, and you're going to start building yourself up. And the 2 ways to do that, tell yourself, I don't try and make sense out of nonsense, and I know that pain is inevitable, yet suffering is my choice. And so I choose not to suffer. I choose to put my attention on those things that make me feel better, make me happier, make me more joyful. And then when all this other stuff is going on, you're not in the mix of it emotionally. You're above it emotionally so that you could take all of that emotion to your life and whatever you're up to out there, and even to help others who may be in the situations that are going on that you have some feelings about or some commitments toward, but you're going to help them more when you're up than when you're down, like the helping the poor. You want to have the money to be able to help the poor. And then, like I said, you bring them up. It's no different. So, and as always, like I said, it's going to take practice, you see. And that's what some of the work that I do with my clients. I want to tell you a little bit more about Power Technology and the coaching program that I put together back in the middle 1980s. I started working on this. And then in 92, my first client came to me. And ever since, I've been training and teaching and coaching my clients and businesses and salespeople on how to be more effective out there in the world and how to utilize the tools and techniques and practices and principles that I teach and do these tools and techniques on a consistent basis. I like to teach people how to do what I tell them about, not just tell them about it and then leave them in a place. So we offer a free consultation and a free self-analysis. It's almost like a guide to how do you get to where you want to go. So if you're a salesperson or a business owner or someone who wants to aspire to take their lives or their business or their relationship or whatever it might be to another level, contact our office. The address is in the description part of the video here today. Or if the other thing we're doing is I'm training and certifying coaches to teach the program that I started back in, like I say, 1980 some odd. And so there's an academy. It's called Power Technology Coaching Academy. And what I do is I teach the one-on-one. We do it through Zoom. I've been using Zoom for over a year now, and now it's got real popular. But it's a great way to teach because we can not only teach the class, but I could also record each session so that the student has those recordings for the rest of their lives, because they're going out and hiring, or people are hiring them to be coaches. I've got a client, he keeps texting me, oh, I signed another client. I just signed another client. And this is what we're doing. Is I want to get the work out into the world. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be around here. You know, my goal is 120. You know, that's in the Bible somewhere it says that we're meant to be living at 120. So you guys are going to hang in there with me. I'll be around for a little while longer. But what I wanted to do is make sure this work got out into the world. If in fact I can make it viral, if you will, and get it all over the world. And so that's why the academy is in place. So if you're interested in perhaps learning about how to be a success coach or a life coach, or you would like to make additional income, or you'd like to learn how to do what I do and do it well so that you can help others, then go to the website ptcoachingacademy.com. And that's on the description also. And also too, with regards to these videos, if you see value and you feel there's some people out there in the world that you'd like to share this information with, go ahead and hit it onto your Facebook feed. And if you could leave it up on your feed for a day or maybe a couple of days, that would help too, because then people get to see it. And now we're getting it out to more people than just that I have contact with. That's the great news about the social media situation. And then the other thing is, if you like what you saw here, hit a like on the video, or if you want to put a comment on it, or you want to make, let's say you want to, other subjects that I may not be speaking about and what that I might know about, then go ahead and put a comment down there and say, hey, how would you like to do this kind of a talk, or talk about this, or share what you might know about this situation, etc. Go ahead and put the comment down there, because my goal is to continue doing these Facebook Live on a weekly basis so that we can get more out there in the world. So just go ahead and help me out on that, if you will, and help others out also, if they can get to see what it is that what we're up to. But now, in closing, I really want to reiterate what we talked about in the beginning, is that Don't try and make sense out of nonsense. Do yourself a favor. You don't need to put yourself through all of what that takes to try and make sense out of nonsense, because you will never, ever be able to do it. Not from your mind and what you'd be doing. And that's what a lot of people get in trouble with, even in relationship. You know, you hear them say, well, if it was me, I would do this. And so they don't make sense out of what the other may do. And now it's nonsense to them, but they're trying to make sense out of it. It's just not going to happen. So do yourself the favor. Just start practicing it here going forward. Just tell yourself that's the, hey, I don't try and make sense out of nonsense. And so then you can get on to really being in your power. You're in your power. You're going to have a lot more ability to create what it is you say you want. You try and make sense out of nonsense, you're going to get a lot of frustration, a lot of anger, a lot of upset. You're going to limit the amount of power that you have. And the more power we have, the more we're going to be able to do some of the things we want to do. The less power we have, the less we're going to be able to do some of the things. And that power is all within us. We don't have to go get it anywhere. It's all within us. And so by you sharing that with yourself, I don't try to make sense out of nonsense, you're going to be giving yourself more power. So now, in closing, until next time, make sure you live the life you love and love the life you live.